Have you ever heard of gold fever? During the Klondike Gold Rush between 1896 and 1899, over 100,000 people sold everything they could to try to get a ticket to get up to Alaska so that they could make it into the Yukon goldfields. The people that did this, they were known to have gold fever. Gold fever was this insatiable emotional high. If they could get to the goldfields of the Yukon, they would strike it rich. All their hopes and dreams would come true. Now, to get there, not only was it expensive to just get to the shore of Alaska before you even got to the goldfields, you had to spend about $500 in that economy, which is a massive amount of money, to get an outfit, which is gear, supplies, tools, everything you'd need before you got to the Canadian border, and the RCMP would let you in to Canada to kind of make your way. Now, out of the 100,000 people that went to the goldfields or attempted to get to goldfields, only 30,000 made it. And out of that 30,000, not everyone struck it rich. In fact, only about 4,000 people, historians believe, actually struck it rich and went home very wealthy. Now, there was others that became very wealthy from kind of entrepreneurial business that was associated to the gold rush, because it was expensive to get goods up, as well as supply was short, demand was high. Some people made a lot of money and they never even actually panned for gold. But there's also a sad part of this gold fever, this insatiable emotional high. Everyone that went up, if you can imagine, a whole pile of people with gold fever getting together, there was no one on the boat up to Alaska saying, you know, you're gonna be poor, this will be the last endeavor that you ever take on financially. You may even lose your life. No one was saying that. You actually have gold fever, but it's amplified because everyone on the boat, the whole trip up, you're all sharing stories about what you're gonna do with your money, and everyone, it's just perpetuating the problem. It's like the infection spreading. Then you land in Alaska, again, the whole culture, the whole atmosphere is all about getting rich. And when we get rich, when we get that gold, then all of a sudden, all of our hopes and dreams will come true, all our problems will go away. For this little tiny substance, that if they could get enough of this, that somehow this little bit of metal will make all their problems go away. So they would share stories on how they were going to strike it rich. But then there's even a sadder end to this, because many of the people that tried to get the money and resources to get up to the goldfields, some people sold everything they had. Some people actually put liens on their houses, mortgaging it, trying to use the property they had, getting debt so that they could get up to the goldfields. But they believed the gold fever had sunk in. No, once I get that gold, I'll be able to pay all this back. But that didn't happen. Out of those 100,000 that attempted, some came home empty-handed, and those outfits they had spent so much money on, they sold everything they could for pennies on the dollar just to get a ticket, to get back on the boat, to get home. But many lost their lives. There was illness, there were violent incidents because it was kind of an outlaw culture. Law and order was kind of put to the wayside in that type of environment. There was also accidents that took place. One in particular, in '98, an avalanche killed 65 miners in one shot. Some people who were attempting to get rich lost their lives in the endeavor, never made it home. Here in the Yukon, gold fever is still alive and well. I have to admit that I've done a little gold panning myself, and it does get really exciting if you see a little bit of a color. Now, there are big gold outfits, mining operations that are doing pretty well, and if you have the resources, you can try to mine for gold and you might get some. Gold fever, although it's alive and well, the same risks are involved. But I think gold fever still exists in the entire Western society, but not just to do with gold. For some of us, it's career fever. We think if we can earn one more dollar, the next job, the next promotion, the bonus, and we're so set on that, then all our hopes and dreams will come true. All our problems will go away. For others, it's possession fever. We think if we can get one more thing, a better thing, a newer thing, that will bring the fulfillment and everything will be sunny, rosy, it'll be amazing. But for others still, it's retirement fever. We're squirreling away as much money as possible, And every month that bank balance, that bank sheet comes out, and we're quickly trying to search that bank balance out. Okay, a little bit more money, a little bit more money, a little bit more saved up. And we think that once I have X amount of dollars, whatever that is, then I'll finally make retirement. And in that moment, then all my hopes and dreams will come true, all my problems go away, and I'm just looking to that. That becomes everything. Career fever, wealth fever, money fever, possession fever, retirement fever, whatever it is, when we focus on that thing and when we see it, when we think about it, we get that insatiable emotional high, the same thing that gold fever gave those first miners way back in the 1800s. Today, we're gonna unpack the infection that money can have and has had on our modern society. We're going to look at an ancient biblical text to find some conclusions, and hopefully we're going to try to come up with some of the answers, some of the vaccine, or maybe even an immunity. We're going to try to fight the fever, fight the infection of money today. My name's Jeremy. Welcome to Mountainview Church.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy, and thank you for joining us at Mountainview Church, our church at home. We're so glad you're with us. We have a great service planned for you today. We're going to be about 60 or 65 minutes, so just hang tight. If this is your first time watching, why don't you consider getting connected with us? And a great way to do that is to go over to mountainviewwhitehorse.ca, to our website, and fill out our Get Connected form. There you'll be able to just let us know a little bit about yourself, and perhaps you have a prayer request or some kind of need, and you can let us know about that, and someone from our ministry team would be happy to get a hold of you. While you're there, you'll also have an opportunity to give online. This is an opportunity for you to help the operating expenses of the church and the ministry. We're trying to reach people and let them know about the love and the hope of Jesus that we are so thrilled to have. And, there is multiple ways to give, not just on our online, on our website, but you can also give at finance@mountainviewwhitehorse.ca. That's finance@mountainviewwhitehorse.ca. And we've just done that in the last couple weeks. And there's been many, many people that have started to do that as their way to give. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for partnering with us in this mission as we aim to share the love of Jesus with others. So we're going to do some worship right now. Sandy and myself, sit back, make yourself comfortable wherever you're watching from, and God bless.
Hi, Base Camp kids. Are you ready to hear a little sneak peek of this week's online video lessons? Okay, so our toddlers, which is our scramblers and our explorers, you guys are going to be learning some stories about Jesus. And then you'll be playing Bible I Spy. So cool. Now, our elementary aged kids, that would be our campers, you guys are going to be learning about faith and how you can trust in something without actually seeing it, and how you can know Jesus without seeing him. Now, all of this information is on our mountainviewwhitehorse.ca page. And don't forget to tune in on Monday nights and Wednesday nights on our Facebook page for Stories with Miss Nicole.
Hi, Junior Youth Crew. You also have a lesson ready for you online. It's video, and you're going to be also learning about believing in what you can't see. So you guys can't see the wind, right? But you see evidence that it's there. Same thing. You're going to learn about believing in God even if you can't see him. So the teens, you have the beginning of a 4-week series on dating. So first lesson is today, and you'll find it exactly the same place right underneath the junior youth at the teens. Junior youth, we are still meeting on Saturdays for the next little bit. On Saturdays, we Zoom together at 7 p.m. And if you are grade 5, 6, or 7, you are welcome to join us. Just register online, and we'll see you on our Zoom time.
so kind to me.
And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves a 99. Oh, I couldn't earn it, oh, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so, so good to me. And I found no word, you paid it all for me. You've been so, so kind to me.
Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves a 99. Oh, I couldn't earn it, oh, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down,
We've been going through a series called Make It Count. If you only had today, what would you do differently? If you only had today, how would you make it count? As we're exploring this bigger theme, we've been looking at the book of Ecclesiastes found in the Bible, in the Old Testament, an ancient document that's a part of the wisdom literature. Written, historians and many scholars believe, written by King Solomon. It's kind of like a memoir, a poetic writing of everything he's seen and what he's seen from humanity, what he's seen from this world, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so today, we're going to jump into Ecclesiastes 5. If this is your first time watching, you can go to mountainviewwhitehorse.ca and you can listen to past messages, you can watch past videos, and you can catch up if you'd like. But today we're in Ecclesiastes 5. If you've got a print version of the Bible, you can find Ecclesiastes in the front of your Bible in the table of contents, find the number and get there. If you have a Bible app on your mobile device, just type in ECC and it should come up and you can go to it there. Here's what Solomon writes. If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter. For the high official is watched by a higher, and there are yet higher ones over them. But this is gain for the land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. Before Solomon gets into kind of the personal infection of money and how it personally impacts us, it's interesting that he spends a bit of time with a bigger view, a kind of a political view, a world leader's view. He talks about the oppression of the poor and injustice and unrighteousness. And he's saying, if in this world, if you see injustice and oppression, don't be amazed. Now, he's not saying that it's a good thing. That's not what he's getting at. He's just saying, as he's looked over the earth, oppression of the poor, injustice, unrighteousness, this is a part of the world. And as soon as we think, oh, this one leader or this one political party, this one kingdom, they're evil, they're bad, they're corrupt, they're oppressive, what's fascinating and what history has shown us is that it seems like no matter what, we can never find a perfect person. We can never find a perfect party. That there always seems to be oppression of the poor, there always seems to be corruption and injustice, and this is a part of a fallen world. Philip Ryken in Why Everything Matters, the Gospel in Ecclesiastes, he gives this comment about this passage. He says, oppression and injustice. We see it in communism, where the state seizes control of the means of production. But we also see it in capitalism, whenever profit is pursed without regard for the well-being of other persons. Somehow, poor people always seem to get the worst end of the bargain. And when this happens, Ecclesiastes tells us not to be surprised. This is not to excuse unrighteousness. It is simply being realistic about life in a fallen world. Even the best governments are far from perfect. As long as we live on God's green earth, we will see people buying their way to power, using public position for personal gain, and manipulating the system for their own advantage. I think this is important because sometimes, even in today's culture, we think, if we can just elect this guy or this gal, that's the person. Finally, there will be no more poverty, there'll be no more injustice, no more corruption. But what's fascinating about history is, like, time and time we have these moments where it's like, oh, this is pretty good. Life's going pretty good. We're making some headway. But then it seems just as soon as we feel like life is going great, a person lets us down. And they do something or say something that just takes away from everything they were trying to build. Or a party elects a new leader or puts through a new policy that we're disappointed in. We're like, what happened? Everything was going so good. And all is Solomon's saying is, don't be shocked. Like Ryken says, all the way the polar opposites of communism and capitalism and everything in between, don't be surprised if they disappoint you, because this is a fallen world. And Solomon is about to deal with money, and this is part of it. Money is always at the heart of so much oppression, no matter what government, no matter what person. Now, verse 9. He talks about if you have a king that desires cultivated fields, then this is a good thing. If you at least have that, that's great. And what this points to food. In our current age, I would say food and clean drinking water. And it's kind of like Solomon backs up and he says, hey, I know there's oppression. I know there's injustice. I know the poor are always being oppressed by the rich. I get that. That's life. But if you live in a country, if you have a ruler where people are able to get fed, and like I said, I would add have clean drinking water, focus on that. And you know, it's kind of sobering because maybe I'm thinking, wow, I need more than food and water. But if we look at the global perspective, even today in 2020, this is actually a really convicting thought. Here's some quick stats for you about food and clean drinking water. 1 out of every 9 people in the world right now don't get enough to eat. 1 out of every 3 people don't have access to clean drinking water. And here's an even more sobering stat that 45% of all child deaths are related to poor nutrition. So Solomon wrote these words in ancient times, and yet how important for us to understand that for someone like me that lives in Canada, who has food, who has shelter, who can turn on the tap and have clean drinking water, and no risk of getting sick from that, he's kind of saying, guess what? You're rich. From a global perspective, if you live in a place and have a government that provides a way for people to access food and clean drinking water, this is a good thing, because throughout history, that's not always been the case. And even today, from those stats, that's not always the case with everyone around the world. Now let's move to verse 10. Solomon writes, he who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them, and what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes? Sweet is the sleep of the laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. After Solomon's dealt with kind of the big picture infection of society or politics or government, and how money keeps the poor oppressed and causes injustice and corruption, and kind of gives us that perspective, he now moves to the personal infection of money, if we go with our theme here on infection and fever and how it gets into us. He talks about never being satisfied, no matter how much money we make, how much income we have. He's saying it's vanity, it's futile, it's fleeting. He's been one of the wealthiest people at that time. His kingdom was vast. He had everything he wanted. He's like, look, I've lived it. It won't fulfill all your hopes and dreams. But then he lays out some psychological symptoms and some physical symptoms. Now, the psychological symptoms are interesting. That the mind believes that the more we make, the more we get, the more we have, the more we save, the more we store up. The mind tricks us into thinking, I need to keep going, and eventually I'll get there, I'll arrive. And Solomon's pointing to the head game. This is a psychological nightmare. You will never have enough. If you chase this, you will always be disappointed. It's interesting. Speaking to the whole term of an infection, this is not a new idea. This is not a Jeremy idea. Did you know that in the 50s, a term came up? During the 50s, post-war, Western world, affluence was building. People were making more money. They were moving to the suburbs, buying homes, getting fancy cars. Life was good. Business was rolling. Technologies were starting to come out in new ways to do things, new inventions. It was an amazing time in the West, a time of prosperity. And a term came out in the 50s called Afluenza. Affluenza is a psychological malaise, a portmanteau of affluence and influenza. And this term started coming out. That psychologists were noticing that this constant pursuit for more, the mind battle of it, is it's like there's no end to this. And so this term affluenza got thrown around, but then it really started to gain steam in the 90s. During the dot-com era, again, a huge time of prosperity in the West, lots of people making money, technology, inventions. And during that time, again, this affluenza term, this infection of the mind of constantly wanting more comes out. And then a book comes out in 2001, Affluenza, the All-Consuming Epidemic. And it's written by John DeGraff, environmental scientist David Wan, and economist Thomas H. Naylor. Now, here's what they talked about as affluenza. Affluenza is described as a painful, contagious, socially transmitted condition of overload, debt, anxiety, and waste resulting from the dogged pursuit of more. This term, affluenza, the infection of the mind, it's fascinating to me that in the ancient world, how many years ago Solomon was like, hey, I've lived this, I can tell you, your mind's tricking you, there will never be enough, be careful. And this is still a problem today, the constant pursuit of more, the psychological symptom of the infection. But then Solomon, he jumps into the physical impacts. He talks about the eyes first, that the eyes need to watch, that people who have lots of stuff, lots of wealth and possessions, their eyes are focused on it, that they have to watch it. The idea behind this statement, or what he's talking about, is really based in security. If you think about it, if you own a lot of stuff, you need to lock it up. If you own a lot of money and investments, you want to make sure that it's secure, and you want to watch it. You want to find out what's going on. How's my money? I better check on it. Where's my stuff? Want to go to that storage container. Is everything still there? Has anyone broke in? So there's this concept of having to watch everything, but also all these things you have to watch and keep secure, it also consumes your mind. Your mind is going to be full with it. You're going to be constantly thinking about, okay, I have all this stuff. Is it taken care of? It takes your gaze. It locks your gaze. But then Solomon shifts into this concept of kind of a difference between a laborer, which is a term in the ancient world of just an average working Joe, working Jane. They're working a 9-to-5 job. They're earning an income. They have food to eat, but they have just a very normal life. But that can be a good thing because they're content. They don't have a ton, but they don't have nothing. And he talks about this concept of a laborer, and then he references a rich person, and he talks about sleep. And this is another physical symptom of the infection, right? He uses the concept that the stomach is full, and kind of pointing to indigestion a bit. And if I'm to think about that, in our current culture, especially COVID-19, I don't know about you guys, but I've gained a little bit of weight during COVID-19. If we live in Western culture, there's stuff in our fridge, there's stuff in our cupboard. We can go get a snack. We can kind of have choices even. Maybe we get a couple snacks. And what Solomon's saying, hey, rich people who have tons to eat, when they go to bed, that food sits heavy and your stomach is full. You don't sleep as well. And so if we think about these two things, the mind is full and the stomach is full. And if I think about this in my own life, and I've had to look at this passage, study this passage, and think about my own life, and I'm like, you know what? It's true. When I eat too much, I don't sleep very well. But then I was thinking about the fullness of my mind. Our family got a new fishing boat. Now, new to us, it's an old 80s model called the Malibu Classic. And yes, it is as retro looking as that sounds. And some of you who have followed my feeds, who have followed Mountainview Church, you know that last year I bought this old aluminum boat, small fishing boat that actually had bullet holes. Yes, I repeat, bullet holes in it. I had to learn how to patch it up. And we used it for a bit, and we've kind of been saving up, and we got this kind of new, older boat. But if I think about it, not only am I not sleeping well if I eat too much food, but I was thinking about my mind being full. Now that I have this new boat, sometimes now I'm worried that someone's going to get up inside of it and steal something from inside the boat. And I never did that with the old aluminum. I never thought about it. But I realized, I'm like, wow, this is convicting. The moment I got this newer boat for us, I'm looking out the window. It's like, oh, is anyone messing with the boat? And I'm like, wow. Solomon wrote this how many years ago? And it's right. The more stuff, the better stuff. Even for me in my own life, it fills my mind, and the food that I'm buying is filling my stomach. And the more I have, the more I eat, the more I consume, the more I acquire, the less sleep I'm getting. So this is a convicting passage. Let's move into this last little piece of scripture here. He's going to talk about two grievous evils. He's going to widen the scope, get a big picture again, but a big picture of this personal infection of money and wealth. He says first, the first grievous evil. He says, there is a grievous evil that I have seen under the sun. Riches were kept by their owner to his hurt, and those riches were lost in a bad venture. And he is father of a son, but he has nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, he shall go again, naked as he came, and shall take nothing for his toil that he may carry away in his hand. This also is a grievous evil. This is the second grievous evil. Just as he came, so shall he go. And what gain is there to him who toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness, in much vexation, and sickness, and anger. So he mentions two grievous evils, but these are very big picture concepts. The first one he states is related to a bad business venture. He's trying to say, hey, you save up everything, you get all sorts of possessions, you got tons of stuff, but you could make one financial decision or a financial situation could happen and it could all be gone. You could lose it all. And I've been thinking about it in our current reality, and there's one thing if someone has a bad business venture, but then there's also just life situations that impact us financially. I read this article this past week about this guy, and he was telling the story that 4 years ago, he invested to buy this really nice cafe, this boutique-style coffee shop in a trendy part of Los Angeles. It had been his dream to do this, and it took off. It became the place to go to. I saw pictures of it. It looked like a really amazing spot. And his business was going well, and he was making great money. People were loving it. He was talking about franchising it. There were lots of ideas on what the future would hold. He thought, this is amazing. This couldn't get any better. But then the story took a really drastic turn. He said COVID-19 restrictions caused him to close his business. And subsequently, he had to lay off his employees. And soon enough, he didn't have the finances to even kind of support himself, never mind the reopening of the business. But he tried to think best case scenario, and someday, the restrictions would lift and he would be able to reopen his coffee shop, and it would maybe be just as trendy as before, and it would pick up and it'll be okay. But then it got worse. What began as peaceful protests turned ugly in that area of Los Angeles. And then I saw a video clip embedded in this article, and it showed his coffee shop, and the windows are all broken, and a guy's walking out. And if that weren't shocking enough, the next couple guys that came out, clearly all the supplies of food and beverage were gone. They were actually carrying out the stools and tables. Then the article continued, and he said, now I have nothing. I have an empty shell of a store. I don't think I'll ever make it back from this. And he was crushed. But coming back to what Solomon said, he was talking more like a bad business venture, but sometimes there can be a financial crisis, a business crisis that you could have never thought about. This business owner, if you had told him 4 years ago when his business is climbing, if you had told him then, hey, there's going to be a pandemic and it's going to cause you to shut down and lay off all your employees, he'd be like, that's crazy. But then even crazier, if he had have received word, or if someone had been able to tell him, hey, there's going to be a man murdered by a police officer in Minneapolis, and because of that, there's going to be protests and then riots and then looting and destruction and vandalism in Los Angeles, and you're going to lose everything. If someone had told him that 4 years ago, he would have said, you're crazy. Are you serious? Something that happens way up in the north of the United States is going to impact LA? What? The world is broken. The world is fallen. And we keep thinking if we can do one more thing, if we can grasp at one new concept or a new way, that all of a sudden all humanity will be perfect. But it won't happen. Solomon doesn't just refer to financial ruin, a bad business venture, a financial crisis, that coming to an end. He also goes bigger still. He takes a wider perspective. He says, naked you came into this world, and naked you're going to go out. Now he's saying, hey, let's just look at this on your lifespan, on the bigger picture. Before you were born, you had no money, you had no possessions. When you die, you will have no money, you will have no possessions. You know, the great leader, preacher, evangelist Billy Graham, he attended many, many funerals, and he was often quoted saying, "I have never seen a U-Haul following a hearse." This idea that in his perspective, he traveled all over the world, and Solomon's getting to the same thing. You can focus on money, focus on wealth, focus on possessions, gather it up, gather it up, gather up. You can let that infection of money just seep in psychologically, physically, where you're just chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. But someday your life will end and none of it comes with you. Justin Holcomb, he wrote about it this way. He said, "We must learn to enjoy what God has provided, rejoicing in life. It would be better to be dead than to be perpetually dissatisfied. In the end, all people will die. Therefore, it would be far better to learn contentment in this life than be ruled by greed." Maybe you're starting to ponder, like, I kind of do chase my career. I kind of do chase money. I do chase possessions. And I would say that living in Western society, it's addictive. The infection rate is real. It is hard to get away from it. It is hard to build up an immunity. And there doesn't seem to be a vaccine. And so what do we do with that? Well, Solomon, he leaves us hanging once again. Like we've seen throughout this series, is that Ecclesiastes leaves us with big thoughts, big concepts, big questions. Where do I go from here? And what we see is that Ecclesiastes and the whole Old Testament is this pointer to the New Testament. That whether it be greed, oppression, debt, all these different things, corruption, injustice, all these things are actually sin. These are sin problems. It's about the money, but the money's not really the problem. It's that love of the money, love of possessions. It's when the infection gets inside and starts just totally consuming us. And the Bible calls that sin, the wrong that we do. But God loved us so much that he sent his son Jesus, that he would go to the cross and he would take that sin. That's right, all the oppression, injustice, corruption, debt, greed, guilt, all of it, that all that infection, that he would take that on the cross and he would pay for it. And he would pay the punishment to give humanity, even though we're fallen, to give us access to a holy God. And 3 days later, Jesus rose from the dead, conquered it all. And through Jesus, there's a way. Because Jesus finishes the story that Solomon started. You know, Jesus, he sums up this whole thought in one statement. In Luke 12:34, Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, your heart is also." Whether you have gold fever, possession fever, career fever, retirement fever, whatever you have, what happens is that infection, it hits the heart. You know, an infection, you know, it might attack our respiratory system, our nervous system, circulatory system, but at some point we'll die. When the heart stops, we're done. Billy Graham, he talked about this kind of psychological infection. He called it Thing-itis. Billy Graham wrote, "There are two ways to be rich: have a lot or want very little. The latter way is the easier for most of us. Many people make themselves miserable by wanting more than they can ever have. They suffer from Thing-itis, the insatiable desire for more, better, and newer things. Jesus was the most satisfied man that ever lived, and he had less than most of us." Today, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of accept that vaccine or to obtain that immunity through Jesus. I want to give you an opportunity to be forgiven. I want to give you an opportunity to say, "Jesus, I need to give you my possessions. I need to give you my wealth. I need to give you the debt, the greed, the oppression, the injustice. I need to turn it over to you, Jesus. And I want to take this opportunity. I want to lay it before you because I know you are so much greater than I, and you can take it. And I will never be able to shoulder this, but you can." And today you can give that over to Jesus and you can start on a completely different journey in life. And all these things that Solomon warned about in ancient time, they are just as real today, but you can be free from it through Jesus. If you would like to give your life to Jesus, or if you know Jesus and you just want to reset, then you can pray with me today. Let's pray. Dear Father, I realize I'm a sinner. I have debt, I have pride, I have greed, I have gluttony. I keep chasing things, possessions, career, retirement, bank balance. I keep chasing things because I have the sickness, I have the infection. I keep thinking that it's going to fulfill me and satisfy me, but it just doesn't end. There's never enough. And today I just want to admit that. And I want to ask your forgiveness. I thank you that you sent your son Jesus to die on my behalf to take all that away. And I'm frustrated about the oppression of the poor. I'm frustrated about corruption and injustice. But I realize that you're in control, and I know that Jesus is the only answer, and I want to submit that to you. I want to follow Jesus. Send your Spirit into me. Transform my mind, Father, that I might start thinking with wisdom, that I might understand that no amount of money, no amount of possessions, no bank balance, and no new car, no new house, it will ever be enough. Help me lean into your Son Jesus, the example, the freedom, the person and power of Jesus, that I might have a new life, that I might have a new life full of contentment and satisfaction. Today I give my life to you, and I choose to follow Jesus. And it's in his name I pray. Amen.
Holy design, this place in time, that I might seek and find my God, my God. Holy design, this place in time, that I might seek and find my God, my God. And Lord, I want to yearn for you. I want to burn with passion over you, and only you. Lord, I want to yearn for you. I want to burn with passion over you, and only you. Lord, I want to yearn. And your joy is mine. Yeah, and why am I fine with all my singing and bringing grain in light of him? I want to yearn for you. I want to burn with passion over you, and only you. Lord, I want to yearn for you. I want to burn with passion over you, and only you. Lord, I want to yearn. We're going to sing that one more time, and just sing and listen to the words. Lord, I want to yearn. And would you make that our prayer as we end our service? Just saying, Lord, I want to yearn for you. Lord, I want to yearn for you. I want to burn with passion over you, and only you. Lord, I want to yearn for you. I want to burn and only you. Lord, I want to yearn. And Father, may we cry out for you. Lord, as we go this week our way, may we, Lord, look to you for our stability, for our dependence. And God, would you be with everyone that is watching, we pray. In your name, amen.
Thank you so much for taking part in this online experience with Mountainview Church. Maybe you've already been gathering in groups at home, doing Mountainview Church at Home. Phase 1 of our physical gathering strategy. And through the month of June, we'd encourage you to get together with maybe other couples, other families, small groups, maybe 10, 15. You can gather and have church together. It's kind of like a first century feel of home churches, but in a modern kind of feel, and obviously using technology. So we'd encourage you to keep doing that. And then first Sunday in July, we're going to start opening up at 9:30 and 11 on Sundays with groups of 50. Now, don't all go rushing at once, because we're going to have to really kind of keep track, and our ministry leaders are working on setup and how this whole thing's going to work. It's not easy for them, but we have an amazing team, and I would ask that you pray for them. They're trying to process how the whole thing on Sunday morning would work. And yeah, it's not easy. So pray that they have wisdom and that they create a plan that's really great, from the foyer experience right in the auditorium and out again. And then hopefully at the first Sunday in August, we'll begin to start having our Base Camp Children's Program. And that's an even bigger job. We understand that kids don't social distance very well. So pray for Nicole Hain and her team, because they've got to work really hard to create a system that works. And then hopefully in the fall, we'll move to the final phase, and we'll be able to start gathering with a more normal feel. We're hoping on it. We don't know for sure, but that's where we're headed. For now, keep gathering in your homes, keep leaving comments, share this, invite people to join in the conversation and experience. And if you need to get connected, click that Get Connected button in the website or in the church online platform, wherever you're at. And we want to try to get you connected to our church. We'll hopefully maybe find someone that you can attend a church at home group. That would be awesome. Also, you can go to different social media feeds, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever you like. Get involved there, subscribe, follow. It's a great way to stay connected. And last but not least, we just want to thank every single person that has been giving to our church, giving to the mission and vision of Mountainview Church. You have, during this uncertain time, maintained consistent giving to support our church and the ministries, and you're making this happen. Much of the technology that we're using, it is directly impacted by the gifts you're giving. And so as the pastor, I just want to say thank you so much. You've kept our staff employed, you've kept technology going, you're keeping the lights on, and that's amazing. We're so thankful for you. Have a wonderful week. Again, thank you for taking part in Mountainview Church at Home.